Hello, boys and girls. I would like to welcome you to the latest Trainers Talk. I'm sitting down with Kelsey Cox, who is the founder of Rye Cycle Co, and she's also a physician assistant for aesthetic medicine. And we have a connection we'll get to later, and this is the first time sitting down and actually meeting each other. So thank you for joining me.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me.
I think we got to start off with a little bit of the skincare stuff, because we were just talking right before we got this thing rolling, and you were talking about a treatment. And from a exercise perspective, somebody who does a lot of spinning, and owns has a great team over in Santa Rosa, and does a lot of teaching. What were you talking about? What is the therapy you're talking about that removes
mirror dry. Do I look at you or do I look at the camera?
You look at me. Look at me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mirror dry, you can kind of compare it to a laser. It's not technically a laser, but it's a one-time treatment that uses microwave energy to permanently get rid of the sweat and odor glands in your underarm.
Wow.
And you don't need it for any health reason. It's totally FDA approved. You sweat throughout the skin on your body, but there's only odor glands in your groin and your underarms.
Yeah.
So if hopefully no one's smelling your groin, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you get rid of those glands in your underarms.
Yeah.
And you don't have to wear deodorant anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's like the standard, like, do you have to wait a certain amount of time after you have the treatment? What's like the kind of...
You'll be swollen. You want to wait at least a week to exercise.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's pretty low maintenance.
Wow. That's pretty interesting.
It's wild.
Yeah. What kind of got you into aesthetic medicine and doing the physician assistant part?
I had really bad acne.
Okay.
Like, I was that kid with braces for like 5 years and really bad acne. I was super shy.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way I could have done this back in high school.
Yeah.
And I was on Accutane twice, actually. So I was in and out of the dermatologist's office. So I kind of got to see that environment.
Yeah.
And I liked the idea of, I don't know, I was interested in a huge science nerd.
Yes.
So medicine and skin, but also having the creative, artistic, cosmetic dermatology side as well. And actually, I was torn between going to med school or doing marketing, but I always loved fitness.
Yeah.
Did a marketing internship, didn't really love it, and didn't want to go to med school because I was like, oh, I can't do 4 years of med school and 4 years of residency and not have time to like work out and do my like fitness stuff. And then I discovered physician assistant, and that was like the happy medium of 2.5 years. You can still practice independently.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we ended up there. And now I do only aesthetics, but I like it. I think there's a lot of mental health impact besides just looking good. You feel good.
Ah, interesting. Yeah.
And especially here where people are mountain biking until they're like 90.
Yes.
A lot of people will come saying, I don't feel like I'm as old as I look.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of anti-aging to kind of keep those fit, healthy people looking how they feel.
Yeah. What is some of the kind of popular treatments that you're seeing from, you take that person who feels great or is very active, but they feel like they don't look, they have the look that matches how they feel?
Yeah, a lot of facial fillers. It's a gel made out of hyaluronic acid that your body makes naturally. Because people that are really fit, you're gonna not have as much facial fat.
Yes.
Your facial tissues and fat, they degrade, and gravity pulls everything down.
Yes.
So you kind of use a little filler to very strategically fill in lines, plump lips, plump cheeks, and if you do it right, no one knows you have it.
Yeah.
It gets a bad rap for the people who do too much or not the right thing in the right place. But if it's done well, you don't know that it's actually done.
I feel like that's like a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
If you go a little too much over the edge, it's not gonna be a great thing. What brought you out to California? Because we both grew up on the East Coast. Did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, Loudoun County.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I grew up in Loudoun County also, and I didn't realize. What high school did you go to?
I went to Potomac Falls.
So we both went to the same high school, but in different times. Different times, and you're much younger than me, much younger than me. So what brought you out to California?
My fiance's job.
Yeah.
He applied to jobs kind of all over the West, And then I was like, wow, I either have to ditch this guy or move out west. And I obviously kept him because we're here, and it was worth it. But it's different. But for this stage of life, I think it's great. I think this area, it's so beautiful. It's so family friendly.
Yeah.
It's kind of that next stage in the journey.
Yeah, that's cool. And when did you get out here in California? What was it?
Like a year and a half ago, July 4th, 2019.
Yeah.
On the dot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No fireworks, just U-Hauls and exhaustion.
Oh, that's interesting. That's kind of reminds me when July 4th. So when I came out here, I came out before Jackie did, and it was I came out about 6 weeks before we got married. Mm-hmm. And I was working on a hotel. I was at Solage working on opening a hotel with them, part of the opening team, and then going to be running that. And then our wedding was 7/7/07.
Oh, wow. So
I flew back on the 4th to go back to the wedding. And then the first time I saw her in about 6 weeks was at the rehearsal dinner.
Oh my gosh.
So so that date of like moving back and forth kind of is in my head also. So I think I was looking and seeing, were you into dance?
Yeah.
How long were you into dance? Was it when you were a
Gosh.
kid? Or?
Yeah, I think when I was 10 years old, I wanted to be a Spice Girl.
Okay.
So I started taking dance classes, and then I just liked it, so I kept doing it in high school and a little bit in college and here and there for fun. But it was a really good transition into cycling, because you grow up dancing and there's not many adult dance, at least not that style, outlets.
Yeah.
So the idea of riding a spin bike to the rhythm of music just really eased that transition.
So when did you get hooked with spin?
I started at college. I took my first class with sorority sisters at Virginia, and I was taking the class, and I couldn't not ride to the beat of the music. It was like compulsive. Like I couldn't get off beat. It was silly. And this was like pre-Soul Cycle being a big deal. Like it was maybe in New York and LA. Definitely wasn't anywhere near Virginia.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I really want to teach this to the beat of the music. I think I would be really excited about it. And then nothing happened with that during college, but I moved to San Diego, knew I wanted to be a spin instructor, and I used my dance background to get my foot in the door, because the gym I was working out at as a client, they wanted to start a bar program.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, my degree is in kinesiology and I danced my whole life. Like, why don't I develop your bar program? And then finally one of the spin instructors went on maternity leave, and they were like, can you teach spin? And I was like, yes. And that was kind of, it just snowballed from there.
Yeah. What's your go-to? Do you have any go-to artists that you like listening to?
Oh, Millennium.
Okay.
So good.
Yeah.
A little emotional, heavy beat drop.
Yeah.
Solid.
It gets you every time. Was there was you teaching it right away? Did you get it right away, or was there certain things that you learned as you were doing it that like, oh, when I do this, people respond well to this? How was that?
Yeah.
Kind of part of it.
This is a good one. This is a story I always tell my instructors.
Yeah.
'Cause there was a really popular instructor, named Zach, outdoor cyclist, but a drummer. So he had this really good kind of combination of hard workout plus use the beat of the music a lot. And when I started teaching, I saw how popular he was, so I tried to be him. And my class just tanked. There was 6 people in it.
Yeah.
And we went up to LA, and I went to Soul Cycle for the first time and saw all these upper body moves on the bike and what that does for the workout and the experience. And I just loved that. And I came back and I was like, this is what I'd rather do, and I'm going to be me. And when I started just being true to myself, playing music I liked, teaching the way I wanted to teach, that's when my classes started gaining momentum, and people came and they were more engaged because I was actually being authentic and not trying to be something else.
Yeah, that's interesting. That always comes true. It's hard for somebody to replicate you.
Yeah.
So you might as well be yourself.
Yeah, and that's my favorite part of the business, is training instructors and kind of watching them grow. And I always tell them, don't be me. You have to take, kind of the training tools and then do it your way.
Yeah.
Be you. I love watching them grow.
Yeah, so it's the mental side and the team building I can just see that's like something that's very core to you. Where do you think that comes from?
Ooh, I don't know. I think, growing up on dance teams, it was a little bit of like, you're on a team, you want your team to perform well, but it's pretty like cutthroat environment of like individual skills and talents to showcase.
Yeah.
But I think as an organization, like Rise as a studio, like you're only as good as like your worst class that you offer, and you want your whole team to be equally strong so that, someone can come in, take any class, have an awesome experience, no matter what time of day works for them. And if my instructor team was busy, trying to one-up each other instead of just help each other grow together, I don't think we'd be where we were today. And I know that wasn't exactly the answer. I don't know. The answer is I don't really know.
Yeah, but that's fine. But I like where it's going. Let's talk more about Rye Cycle Co. and what sparked the start of it. You're the founder, and you're probably one of the founders. Probably
Just me.
Just you. So what sparked that? Why did you want to do that?
Yeah, I jokingly say that this is the career that chose me. Like, you grew up in Northern Virginia, your parents are like, you will go to school, you will go to college,
yes.
You will get your good job that provides you health insurance.
Yes.
Never in a million years would they be like supportive if I was like, I'm gonna go be a full-time cycle instructor.
Yeah.
And we went through that a little bit. So I jokingly say it's the career that chose me because I started teaching in San Diego, discovered what a physician assistant was, applied to some programs thinking I wasn't going to get in because PA schools are a lot smaller than med schools, and everyone's like, oh, you might not get in this first round, maybe you'll get in and when you apply next year. And at the same time, San Diego was opening one of its first boutique cycle studios, and the owners of that one offered me the position of instructor and manager of that studio, which was at least that full-time job, maybe not the security that being a physician assistant has. And then I actually did get into programs, and it was really hard. That was one of the hardest moments, was deciding to go to grad school or to take that job. And I ended up going to grad school in Boston and was really lucky to continue teaching for a studio there. So when I moved to Nashville after grad school, I managed an instructor team for a studio in Nashville, and then co-founded a studio in Nashville, which I learned a lot from. I definitely wouldn't say it worked out. And that's a story that I don't like looking back on it. It's kind of painful.
Yeah.
But I like what I learned out of that, because I initially was going to do the Nashville studio by myself, and I had never had my own studio before. I'd consulted for other people's studios. I'd trained other people's instructors, and I knew what I needed to do. I had all the tools, but I just didn't have that confidence to go at it alone. And taking someone else as a safety net kind of led to, that experience not working out, the way I intended. So when I knew we were moving out here, I was more than ready.
Yeah.
I knew, I had already co-founded a successful studio, and I just saw that space in Santa Rosa of here's this great town.
Yeah.
And there's no boutique cycling studio that does strictly rhythm-based riding, and I know, I just knew. So this time around with Rise, I had that confidence, pulled the trigger. I also got very lucky with such a good team from the beginning. Your people are everything. So the fact that
how did you, so you're new to the area,
Yeah.
How did you meet some of your new team? How did you, foster that?
Yeah, there was one rhythm-based class offered at another gym that I went to and talked to that instructor kind of early on, I'm looking to open a studio. Did not poach her, said she could go wherever she wanted and teach everywhere she wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're independent, and that's how that works.
Yeah, but she wanted to join us on our Rise journey anyway, and I'm super grateful. And then a few of my riders, you could just tell were really passionate, and you just getting to know people, you have these organic conversations of, oh, I love your class, grew up as a drummer, grew up as a dancer, and then it's, oh, do you want to teach spin? Do you want to teach cycling?
Yeah.
And they all say yes until you realize how much work it actually is to teach a good class. And then they stuck with it, but mostly from that one instructor in class. And then once you open, people find you.
Yeah.
Like once you have a studio, not all, but a lot of riders, want to take that next step and be the one leading the ride. So the hardest part's over.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
And so when did Rye Cycle open?
February 8th.
Awesome.
5 weeks before the shelter in place.
Of course. And so I've kind of gotten, talking about the year of the pivot and, having to do all that.
The pivot, multiple pivots.
But it's, for those who are understand basketball, I mean, like you're pivoting so much, you feel like you're traveling. Mm-hmm. So how did you take me some of those landmarks that you went through the year and take me through some of those emotions of you start like before you even open, what that's like. You open, shelter in place. Like tell me, kind of talk me through the journey. You give me the highlights. What are you thinking looking back?
So before we opened, you've opened many gyms for many people. It's this like coming together of like staff, equipment, build out, and you have all these components coming together at the same time. And my goal is always just start, like just open, start building your clientele, start offering what you have to offer. So February 8th was like, things were coming in the night before. I think we were like building cubbies the night before. And Drew, my fiance, was like, are you sure you don't want to push it to next weekend? And I'm like, no, we're doing it. So that's how we opened. Once we signed the lease, we were opened in like 3 months.
Oh, wow.
I was trying to like lay a lot of the groundwork before finding the space in Santa Rosa. And what I was doing this morning was looking at our hopefully second location, why I had to reschedule.
Yeah.
But so we kind of opened quick, got very lucky that we were really well received. A lot of people came in, brought their friends. We had 5 weeks of like the dream. We started with 26 bikes and I bought 35.
Yeah.
I was thinking, maybe in 3 months we'll add those extra bikes. We added them after our second week.
Wow.
So we were doing sold out classes of 33 people in our first month, which was awesome. I'm so grateful for that because those people stuck with us.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because we closed. March 15th was our last day of indoor classes. And I've been lucky enough to know a lot of cycling studio owners through my work, and one of them in Maine, she was probably the first person, Jibe Cycling, Joanna, to lease out her bikes. And I was like, we're doing it. I didn't even think twice. And Drew is always my favorite devil's advocate of, are you sure you want to lease your very expensive equipment to people? But I was sure, because if we didn't keep the engagement, keep people moving, as many as we could, only 35, but we did it. We wanted to have that community to come back to.
Yeah.
So my office was closed, so I wasn't doing any physician assistant work. I was just producing the video rides, which I'm sure you know how all this AV stuff goes. Big learning curve. It was harder producing video workouts than opening the studio. And I wasn't even working.
Yes.
Like I could do video workouts full time, and it was so much work.
Yes. Yeah.
Record it, edit it. We got it on YouTube. And I was a huge proponent of the videos. They're free.
Yes.
Pay me for the bike. But I saw a lot of studios offering classes for a lot of money. And I know every small business was in jeopardy during the shelter in place. But I just couldn't be like that opportunistic where I would charge someone $100 a month for something I filmed on my phone.
Yeah.
I was just very like, we're all going through a rough time together. If this spin class is going to help you get through it, then just take it. And we did do a donation link. So if people, were in a good place financially and wanted to throw us $10 for a ride here or there, we very much appreciated it. Split it between the instructors that filmed. So yeah, that was shelter in place. Mm-hmm. Then we got to go inside for 3 weeks.
Yes.
In June. It was lovely. We cut it down to like not very many bikes in the room, well over 6 feet apart. No one got COVID.
Yeah.
And that was the best, kind of being back in that space. And then we had to go outside. And we don't have like a dedicated parking lot. So we were in like 3 different areas of the shopping center doing outdoor rides. Then
So how does that work?
Oh my gosh.
So I live in Santa Rosa. I do most of my work here in Napa Valley, but I know where that space is.
Yeah, Farmers Lane. It's like a street.
It's street, and as we're really close to the fire station here, but one of the things I noticed is, and even a couple of my staff would mention when they would ride by there and saw you guys on the
Oh
sidewalk.
yeah, we did some patio sidewalk rides.
Patio. Now that was just one thing because it was right outside your door. What's the setup and time it takes to get the bikes to the different locations in that fairly big shopping area?
That's been, I think, one of my biggest hurdles, because while we're lucky that Rise is making money, my support staff, this is why I cannot say enough good things about my team, because now we've got it down to where 2 studio coordinators can roll out all the bikes and set them up. But we were starting with 3 or 4, because before we were on the sidewalk, we were doing it in the parking spaces, and it would take 3 people an hour before class to roll them all out. Then we'd have the classes, then we'd have to roll them all back twice a day. So the bikes are getting beat to hell.
Yes.
They were much better off at people's homes.
Yes.
And the payroll expenses just shot up a ton. So, you know, financially I'm very proud of us, but we're not like rolling in dough, because all the money goes back to the team.
Yeah.
And I'm not super mad about that. Like, our day will come when we're on better financial footing. And I'd rather keep my good team, because without them we wouldn't be open. But it's a big production. And I think that's a lot of studios just stayed straight virtual.
Yeah.
And whether that worked for them or not, I know for some it didn't. I think that's a lot of our survivals. We kept the community. We kept a space where people could physically gather and not just virtually gather in a safe way. And I think that's what has really kind of carried us through this past year.
That's awesome. And so now that you've gone through that process, and I think, you know, there's a lot of probably looking back, but there's also looking forward. What's forward? What does Rye Cycle Co. look like going forward?
Who knows when we'll be allowed inside. I jokingly say I own an outdoor cycling studio.
Yep.
Not an indoor cycling studio. So my goal, kind of moving here, like, this is my new hometown. So I want to lay some roots down, you know, not only personally, but with the studio, because I truly believe in what it offers. Like, yes, it's a business, but I'm sure you feel the same passion that your business does something so good for people. That I want to kind of hit a few different little cities in this area and have Santa Rosa as our flagship studio, whether it's in a parking lot or not. And then a few of the surrounding cities that I know are reasonably within reach, and just kind of keep growing our community for whoever wants it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. So when let's talk a little bit about the skincare. I'm interested in this. Sometimes the questions become personal. Some of them are like, you know, I want to know your story and things like that. But from a physician assistant's point of view, and somebody who works with skincare and works with aesthetic medicine, what if you kind of go through different age groups, you know, 20 to 30 and 30 to 50, you know, you can break it down whatever you're used to seeing. What's some kind of like basic skincare advice? I mean, as we're kind of sitting in the sun and it's February.
Still sunscreen.
Yes.
Still, it all starts with sunscreen. That's going to prevent you spending money getting Botox from me as you get older. So yeah, when you're young, sunscreen. Even 20s and 30s, sunscreen, vitamin C in the morning, retinol at night, and eye cream. Eyes, as they age, it's harder to turn the clock back on.
Yeah.
So even just keeping them hydrated is a good preventative. Then kind of your next step is some preventative Botox and someone who works with muscles a lot, Botox is thin like water. It gets injected into the muscle belly that when the muscle contracts, it folds the skin. And if you think of the skin as a piece of paper, you fold it a bunch of times, it's eventually going to get that crease that stays there. But if you can't fold that piece of paper, it's never going to crease.
Yeah.
And you can still get it injected where it's subtle enough where like your face isn't frozen, you still have expressions. I still say people can tell I'm making the WTF face.
Yes.
So a little bit of preventative Botox. People ask me like when to start. It's a question I get a lot. It's very individual.
Yeah.
So, and for men and women.
Yeah.
It's not just women anymore. And it's all going to depend on your anatomy and just your family, like looking at your parents. How do they move their face? Where are their lines? When did they start getting those lines? Do you make the same faces?
Yeah.
So everyone's kind of different in that regard. People start as early as 22, or don't start until they're 50. It kind of just depends.
Yeah.
And your next step is going to be kind of hydroquinones if you didn't get the sunscreen memo.
Yeah.
And you get those age spots because you're running around Sonoma County in the sunshine or Napa. Hydroquinone will help fade some of those sunspots in combination with those other products. Fillers are great for facial fat and just facial restoration like we talked about, or even enhancement.
Yeah.
Like I had the most hollow eye sockets. People would ask me if I was sick.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sick, it's just my face. So putting a little filler like in a kind of hollowing underneath the eye just makes you look a little more refreshed, and that doesn't have to be an anti-aging thing. It can just be an enhancement thing. And, there's nothing wrong with that, wanting to look and feel your best. So don't let anyone guilt you if you want a procedure done.
Totally. I mean, that's what's nice about it. It's personal preference and kind of what's going to make you feel. I mean, that's the reason you work out. That's the reason, ideally, you eat well.
Yeah.
It's kind of all about, we've found in the last, for sure in the last year that, taking care of yourself is very important.
Totally.
Is there any questions you wanted to ask me?
Yeah, because we're from the same place, but we've never gotten to meet. We've never gotten to chat and hear your story. So kind of a little bit of your abbreviated background, and I'm really more interested in kind of how and when did you pull that trigger on, making this your career, making a fitness, wellness related company and brand your full-time gig? Because I'm still holding on to my full-time gig.
Yeah. And
it's scary to kind of release that safety net.
Yeah, so I would say, 2000, so background kind of quickly, JMU undergrad, Georgia State graduate for exercise physiology, had certain jobs, worked multiple jobs at Loudoun County Hospital through our connection, Mrs. Mook.
Love it.
So did that like in between, like that would be my summer job and stuff like that, and those type of things. And then worked with professional athletes, the Washington football team, some of the athletes there. And then Slodge, the resort out here, brought me out here.
Okay.
And for me to kind of design the gym, start the program from scratch. And I knew in senior in high school that I wanted to kind of get towards this direction. I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, but I knew it was going to get towards this direction. Our English teacher asked us to interview somebody that we thought had an interesting job. And I interviewed our trainer who was getting us ready for our senior basketball season.
Yeah.
At Potomac Falls. And so I found out he went to graduate school. He played baseball similar to me, and I was like, okay, this is the route. Did that, made my way out here, and I knew about 6 years out of the 7 years I was at Solage, by year 5, 6, I knew I was ready to do my own thing. But it was like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And is there a way for me to kind of do that with this current company? And several things happened where it kind of led me more and more. I kind of let the universe speak to me a little bit, of, you know, how are the people who somewhat control my destiny who might be my higher ups, how are they reacting to certain things that would I do it that way? And I was noticing they're not doing the way I would do it, especially from a wellness, fitness standpoint. And I was like, okay. So I created an LLC because one of my clients who designed, Aaron Martin, and Maria Torres, they design high-end homes. They're interior designers. And I was training them, and they were like, you know, I know you've designed some gyms. Would you be open to designing some of our clients' gyms?
Cool.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's right within my wheelhouse. I love creating. I love starting something from scratch.
Yeah.
Having an idea, thinking it's great. You put it on paper, and you're like, this is going to be a lot of hard work. And so that's what created the LLC, and I still worked for Solage for like another year, and then I finally was like, okay, I'm ready. And what allowed me to jump was I had personal training. So that in itself, I knew that if I left and I was able to go to people's homes, that I was going to make at least this. And I had kids at the time, and so my dad calls me and he goes, son, are you sure?
Our parents are so similar.
You know,
They're so Northern Virginia.
Yeah, so Northern Virginia. And so, and I understand that. And, you know, he's just thinking, you know, he's thinking about his grandkids, and he's thinking about.
They only want the best for us.
They only want the best. But, you know, I think also being out in California, you can feel that the individualism is important here. Like, people appreciate the ability, like you do with your team, for them to be themselves, and we come together. I kind of say our team's like the Avengers. We each have our own character.
Yeah, your own superpower.
Our own superpower, but when we come together, we're the Avengers. So people appreciate that more out here, where I feel like Northern Virginia, East Coast, at least 20 years ago, the vibe was more company driven. The company's name went first. Where here, your name could be just as important as the company name.
Totally.
And so I felt that I had support from my clients, that they wanted to continue to work with me, and I did that. And then I was like, I can't have all my hours. I need some passive income. And I also want to create a community, and I wanted to be all about me. So, and that's when Calistoga Fit, the idea of Calistoga Fit kind of arose. And it really was stemmed from, Calistoga has a lot of hotels, for how small a town it is. It has kind of per capita, has the most hotel rooms kind of in the valley.
Oh, wow.
And so, and a lot of the hotels don't have gyms, and they don't have access to fitness classes for their guests.
Oh.
So that's where the idea came from. It was like, I know the instructors in the area, because a lot of them I hired at Solage.
Yeah.
And just through my years of doing what I was doing, and I reached out to them, and they all had their own kind of personal thing. I said, why don't you take your Wednesday class that you sell directly, let me put it all on one website, and I'll put a boot camp class, and it'll be in different places all over the town, and the town's small enough that it just becomes a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
For people that like kayak, or like when you're looking for something, you can just type in yoga or something like that, and you can see the different yoga classes that are available in the area. And then eventually I realized there was also a strong need for the local community.
Yeah.
And so it kind of bounced from there, and one of my, Tara, one of my instructors who I hired at Solage, wanted to come with me and help me co-found it, along with my wife, who at the time had her own marketing company, and then she decided to take a more secure job and be the marketing director at Carneros Resort and Spa, to kind of, you have the health, I had the health insurance, now you have the health insurance. You know, like do that bounce around.
Yeah, we're playing that game too.
Exactly. And so that's how you do it. You have to, one advantage I've seen that I've had is that I have my partner.
Yeah.
And so I give her advantages and she gives me advantages. And we're often able to pivot off each other through, okay, this is your goal, this is your dream. I'm going to step back. I'm going to do the thing that's stable so that you can do this, and then vice versa. And then eventually we got to a point where we're like, we can be in this together.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, totally. It's, yeah. And I never want to leave being a PA totally.
Yeah.
But, you know, with kids and family kind of on my horizon.
Yes.
I love the idea of having the freedom to have that time to not be on someone else's clock and just delegate and spend more time with my family. But it is scary. Right now I have the health insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
But we can easily switch it over to Drew's. But yeah, it's definitely helpful. Were you scared regardless, or were you ready?
Yes, I was ready, but to say that you're not somewhat worried is not necessarily understanding it. I would say one thing that helps me get through my nerves, we did this with our app, we did this when we start working with other properties, is I always started small.
Yeah.
Tested it, and just slowly every day we just try to get it better and better and better. And one of the reasons I do that is I don't have the money to do the capital intensive, let's just go.
Yeah, totally. Feel ya on there.
Yeah.
We are a scrappy little studio. We spent money on what matters.
Yes.
And didn't go for any of the frills.
Exactly.
Totally.
So I think that I always made sure I'm not the type of, and because I have a family, I'm not the type of person to put it all on the table. I'm like, I'm willing to make sacrifices, eating out and, how we do other external expenses and making sure that I can take care of my team, so I don't want to overspend where I feel like I'm going to be strapped to take care of my team who are really doing great work. But I try to find that crick of space. So one of the things that helped me is partnerships in a way. And it's not necessarily giving away some of your business, because me and Jackie own 100% of the business.
Yeah.
But where we're sitting right now, this hotel had a space. It was underutilized. And I came to them and I said, you've seen what I've done at Solage, you've seen what I've done with other hotels. Let me do that here, but let me lease the space from you.
Yeah.
And you have more capital. I didn't say that, but necessarily in negotiations. But you have more capital, but I obviously have the skill.
Exactly.
And I have a proven record of doing this. Let me take this over, and in return, your guests, when they stay here, if they want to come use the gym, they can, and they have the best gym in Napa Valley.
Nice.
And then from your return, you're going to pay for more of the equipment.
I love it.
And so that's how we did it in the beginning. And we found those partners, and we've done that with some of the other hotels. Yeah. Other hotels are more for their guests, and we've done some things from outside in. But this one is like, we own it. We drive the culture, our team does. And so that's what I tried to find. What is the leverage point? I think if you're looking for new spaces, what is the leverage point? Like, space, there's going to be more abundance. It should be. It's sad to see people kind of close down.
Yeah. But
what is the leverage point? What can you slightly squeeze out of situations to get the most out of the movement?
Yeah. Just being smart. I've definitely seen some studios throughout my time just really overdo it. And I'm just, where did you get the money for this? This is one going through my head. Northern Virginia, just, it was interesting. The most beautiful studio in Tyson's Corner spent a lot of money on the light show and the sound system and the bikes, which you do spend money on the bikes.
Yes.
Didn't spend money on their people.
Yeah.
Didn't pay the people well, and that's your everything.
Yes.
You spend that money on I hate calling it your talent, but your talent.
Yeah, they're talent, and I agree. I think what helped, and I think this is happening to you, and I think this is the reason why you all have success, because you recognize this. You were an instructor, and you were an instructor in a position where, you've had experiences with good bosses and probably not good bosses.
Yeah, exactly.
And I lead a very instructor-led business, where I'm like, we could be in a parking lot, we could be on a park. It's not as much. I want to have sound equipment. I don't have to have the latest equipment.
Yeah.
I want sound quality equipment, but people are coming to see that person and have that experience with them, and so we gotta develop that side of it. So that's interesting.
Totally. How do you balance the family life?
Very, very good question.
I can't imagine one more thing on my plate, let alone like the most important thing.
Yes. So this is the question I think me and Jackie get the most. And Jackie's even more crazy than I am because she's a firefighter on top of it. But one of the things, I talked to a family member of mine and a couple other people, but before I decided to break on my own, just to kind of ask them, what's some things you did or you think are really important? And my cousin, he owns a lot of several restaurants in Atlanta Airport, and also a lot of vending machines, like pretty much most of the vending machines in Atlanta Airport, which is a huge airport.
Yeah.
So he was a good person.
There.
He was a good person to talk to. Really, his son is the same generation as me, so we got along, sleepovers and stuff when I was growing up and things like that. So when I sat down with him, he used to, in the 90s, when he was probably like 40 at the time, he had like 6 to 8 McDonald's and I think one Burger King, like around the Atlanta area. But for him to go visit those places, it would take like a 2-day period to kind of get to everything. So he could like visit 3 or 4 in one day and 3 and 4 the next day. And over time, he eventually started to sell them off because he wanted to get in the airport. And then he was able to get in the airport, and he said, that was the best decision he ever did. And the reason was he has a nice house in downtown Atlanta. He can take the metro, or it's called the MARTA, and it takes him directly into the airport. He can do his emails as he's on the train because it has internet. He has a warehouse that's right, really close to the airport. So he has one of his guys picks him up. He goes to his office, checks in with the team that's there that has like the paper plates and stores some of the extra food and blah, blah, blah for the multiple restaurants in the airport. And then he goes into the airport, and then he checks each restaurant. And he's like, I can do that whole process of me even getting there, 6 hours.
Wow.
And where he checks in with each restaurant for about 30 minutes. And he's like, if you can dig deeper versus spanning out, he's like, that's okay, you can. He's like, you have pros and cons in doing that. So what I decided to do, taking that nugget, was 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. the work, I'm putting myself towards the work. Now there's days now in COVID and shifts where I can do certain things digitally more and work with clients from home. So sometimes I'll get home a little earlier and stuff like that. But from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., I'm gonna pack it.
Yeah.
And then dinner is the family.
Yeah.
Every night I make dinner, or we order out maybe once a week. And if I really need to get something done after the kids go to bed, from 8 to like 9:30, I'll get some of that admin stuff I couldn't get to.
Yeah.
And I kind of live with that. Sunday I leave untouched. Sunday is family day, or me hanging out with Jackie.
Sounds like boundaries, like very organized boundaries.
Very organized boundaries of like, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pack it in. If I pack that in, and then right now most of our partners are in this valley. So they're within 45 minutes to an hour at the max from us. And I don't want to be further right now, and especially in the stage that we're doing it. That could shift now because of the digital aspect of things, that I would be a little bit more comfortable in going outside that bubble.
Oh, Godspeed. I'm so done with digital.
Yeah. But when I'm saying digital, what I mean by that is it's not necessarily teaching. It's more of like, if I have team members that are outside the bubble, I'm more comfortable with that.
Yeah. Totally. I know, that's kind of the same radius that I have in my mind, like no more than an hour.
Yeah.
Hopefully around 45 minutes. I would love Rye Cycle Co. Ashburn.
Yes.
I looked. My parents, who at first were skeptical, my dad looked at retail spaces in Northern Virginia with me.
Yeah.
Because he's seen it. Now that I've done it,
yes,
it's interesting. He wants me to have that safe job, but I've turned my whole family into spin nerds.
Yes.
Like, they will nerd out so hard on the boutique fitness industry with me. My dad will kick anyone's ass in spin class now. So will my whole family, but not just my dad. But we looked, and I couldn't pull the trigger on it because I can't be here and there. There's only one of me.
Yes.
So it just has never made sense, and it probably never will.
Yes.
That my focus can be here. If I can run to the studio while the kids are at school, then be home when they get home. You know, I want to grow Rise in this local area, but I also want to delegate some of that to get some freedom for family time.
Yeah.
A lot of big things. Let's just get through this pandemic.
And I think some of it, what happens is, especially when you talk about family, you don't know until you know.
I'm not even going to pretend to have a clue.
And so I think what will happen is and I think I can tell that the way you're talking, that you're already starting to do it. It's just now finding, can you find the right connection with a community to put a business there? Will they connect with what you're trying to do?
Yeah.
And is this the right space? I knew it took time to figure that out for Calistoga, and I know, like, Calistoga, and it's part of the Up Valley, but Calistoga, like, there's certain things that are here that just connect with how we operate, and it sometimes in ways that you can see it where the community doesn't realize how much they need it but you can see it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I can tell you have vision. It takes some vision to be like, I see this space.
Yeah.
And I can fit into that space, and people don't realize it's there. And I might be able to fit into this nicely, and it blossoms.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
What a year. I think people probably think I'm insane looking for the next location when fitness is not even allowed.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, I'll just start looking for it. I'll start slow playing it. And now I've seen the outdoor workouts and how much they still matter to people.
Yes.
Because there's nothing else we can do up here. Like, we just got outdoor dining back. But even still, kind of what we used to fill our days with, even going to an office and back, we don't do anymore.
Yes.
So an outdoor, like, training session or fitness class has become someone's event.
Yes.
And I'm even like, should I wait? Part of me wants to just pull that trigger and start doing outdoor in, this next demographic, hopefully, which is a crazy and terrifying thought. But I think that's one thing, pivot quickly, at least for Rise, and be, like, decisive about it.
Yeah.
Like, lease the bikes, do it. Pull the bikes outside for a class, do it. And I figure if it doesn't work, we'll just pivot again. Yeah,
I mean, I would say, even, like, if you take your idea of that, like, is there a way to test it? I don't know.
Yeah, you just throw them in a U-Haul, drive to your next town over, do an event ride, see if there's any interest.
Exactly. I mean,
your low-risk test.
Is a low-risk test is like, okay, we'll be out of just renting the U-Haul.
Yeah.
And we have all the equipment. It'll take time and effort.
Yeah.
But that's what you have when you know.
And you can't put 33 bikes back in the studio.
Yeah.
We're not going to be. Spin bikes used to be 9 inches apart.
Yes.
9 inches. You would hit elbows with people. You would definitely breathe the same air. now we're going to be 6 feet apart, I think, for so long that I
Totally.
can't even fit all the bikes I've bought in my Santa Rosa studio.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
So I'm gonna give you a head start. This will come out next week, but I would reach out to hotels,
you think?
like hotels that are in the areas that you wanna, like boutique ones that don't have gyms, and you're like, I will bring the bikes,
Yeah.
and I want to test this out.
Ooh.
I would do it, and then you test it out and say, I would like to open this up to local community, and also your hotel guests,
Yeah.
and try that. And
See.
most of those hotels have an outdoor space.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing events. Especially if it's a conference type of hotel,
Yeah.
they have space,
That's
but
a good idea.
So
Had to buy so many silent disco headsets.
yeah, and you can still use them. So you can use them at the hotel, because then you could teach a class at 8 a.m.
And not bother anyone.
You're not going to, a guest who's staying in a nice
Oh my
hotel.
gosh. I did a rooftop ride in Nashville, and we brought our loudspeakers. The guy staying on the floor below, the presidential suite or whatever, like owner of the Knicks, like woke him up.
Yeah.
I've never been in so much like trouble in the fitness industry as when that GM of the hotel was
Yeah.
like, stop this class right now. So yeah, silent disco. Learned a lot about that. How to
Yeah.
not get called on when you're doing outdoor workout.
Yeah, totally.
No, I so appreciate, your advice and like that advice, even just sharing your insights. A friend of mine in Nashville was just on a podcast talking about the fitness industry, and it can be a really mean and cutthroat place.
Yeah.
It's a pretty competitive space, sometimes with a lot of ego, and I really value like this time getting to chat, all of like the support from you and Jackie via DMs when I had never met you, and like I'm totally here to do the same. I think like local community fitness could use a little more of this.
Totally. And at the end of the day, what I've learned is that it's a big enough pie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, if I had every person in Santa Rosa coming to Rise, I would need hundreds of bikes.
Exactly.
Like, there's something for everyone.
Yes.
It's, even between spin classes, like the way Jackie would teach a class or I would teach a class is totally different, and you could enjoy one or both,
Totally.
and there's still enough
Yes.
to go around.
Totally.
Do you teach spin? Do you get
I
on
do.
the bike?
I do. I do. I get on the bike. I do it once a week on Saturday.
Who's your go-to artist?
Ooh, my go-to artist. I like Jax Jones. I kind of like. Who else? I'm pretty eclectic. I pick music. I'm more of a DJ style.
Ooh.
So what I mean by that is that I'll look at who's coming to my class.
Uh-huh.
Now there's definitely some ones that are like, these are songs that I'm gonna play no matter who comes.
Yeah.
So I would say I always leave half the list for that. But then I would say the other half of the list becomes negotiable based off who's in the class and who responds. So if I have a crowd of 60 plus, where like 3 or 4 of them there, then I'll throw something that's in the 70s or 80s kind of rock or something.
Yeah.
You
Or
know.
just Google remix of some
Yeah,
80s
so
rock
something
song.
to kind of have a blend just to throw the thing off. I will also actually DJ. I'll pull out the tables
Shut up.
and actually DJ.
When are you doing that next? I'm coming.
I was thinking about surprisingly doing that this Saturday. So yeah, and that's fun. And
That's the
then,
best. It's harder because you don't get that break in between songs.
no,
You just go.
I just go, and then you can play around with the like I can throw in. Sometimes I've done where you throw in thunder stick, and then you throw in thunder with Imagine Dragons.
Ooh,
And like you
okay.
can like mix it together and have some fun with it, and then you could use different types of call signs that where the board is calling you out to sprint when it's time to sprint and things like that. And
That's fun.
so but I think we can go on days and days.
We'll have to have you guys over.
Yes.
I don't know why I thought you lived out here just because your business is out here.
Yeah.
But we're in the same town.
Yes, we are. So
Oh
we're
my
gonna-
gosh, Jackie's colleague saved my house. Like the least we can do is have you. She DM'd me and was like, at 4:30 in the morning, your house was still standing.
Yes.
I'm so appreciative of her and all of them. And even I feel like there's people that I'm so grateful for the firefighters, but even whoever designs the logistics. That
Yes.
sends out the like nixles that like tells the police this is going to be the traffic pattern. The police are doing the traffic pattern. Like, you know, it's unfortunate this area had to go through the Tubbs fire
Yes.
to really like get that under control.
Totally.
But for probably the most traumatic event of my life, that fire was very well organized.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you know, we're rebuilding, new fences up, but you know, we should nerd out sometime for sure.
We will definitely do that. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This was a lot of fun, and I think we'll have to do a round two.
Yeah, long time coming.
Cool.